Lionel, if the country could ever win you back as a resident, what would it need you to do? What would you need to see?
I'd love to see another party come along. I mean, I think both major parties are dysfunctional. I would say the same thing of the United States. They are disconnected from what people want. And, both parties are to the left of the majority of the population, which is bizarre. I'd certainly like to see a little more functionality, which would include clapping down on immigration and keeping it under 100,000 a year. That will never happen. That means I'm never going back, I guess. And I'd love to see all the woke stuff just go out the window. I mean, part of the embarrassment of that movement in the UK is that you guys didn't even make it up, right? This is all imitative of American insanity. And if you're going to imitate anything from the United States, the last thing you want to bring in is this drecky, destructive, self-hating ideology. I mean, it's poison, and it has infected all the UK major institutions as badly as it's infected the US ones. And I think it's shameful, and it does. It makes the UK a more depressing place to live for everyone. I mean, is this? I'm not usually big on vocal patriotism, but that's because I grew up in a time in my country where there was lots of patriotism, and therefore nobody needed my patriotism, if you know what I mean. I mean, I'm not really into ceremonies in the UK. I'm not that big on the royal family. I think it plays an important social role, but I don't show up for all those occasions and wave flags. It's just, I don't like pomp. It bores me. Nevertheless, when I was growing up, it was normal to be patriotic as an American. And that freed me to be very critical of the United States because it was a minority viewpoint, and it was trendy. But, there was this sense that otherwise, in terms of people generally believing in the country as a project, that was not endangered. So I could poke at it and be very outright anti-American if I wanted to, but that didn't endanger anything. It was still basically a sense that there was a rock solid self-belief in the country, so that I was indulging in what we now call luxury beliefs, right? I had luxury anti-patriotism as an adolescent. We can't afford it anymore. Those luxury beliefs are now institutionalized. They are now mainstream. It is now mainstream to hate your country, to be ashamed of your country. And it's even becoming mainstream to regard it as in a terminal decline. And I'm afraid I'm feeding that right now. And I don't feel entirely good about that, because I do think there's still such a thing as British culture, and some of my best friends are British. So I feel a little guilty doing the country down too much, and I have regard for it. I have regard for British history, for British cultural achievements, the British sense of humor. I like Britain. I don't want it to go swirling down the toilet. But I hate seeing it go dark, so dark about itself, and become fatalistic in a really saddening way. That I guess that's all over now, and we'd have to resign ourselves. Native Britons have to resign themselves that they're going to be a minority in what was once their own country in short order, and that's kind of, oh well. And there's always been a strain of British culture, especially at the top intellectual level, that did the country down. And it's never been especially cool to be patriotic. And while in my decrepitude, I'm starting to see there's a place for patriotism. After all, if you're not a patriot, you don't die for your country. You just don't. And in both the US and UK, I think we've got a majority younger generations who would not go to war. They just wouldn't. And that's shocking. There are polls that back this up.
Yeah, you are right.
And after all, the UK has to thank many young people, mostly young men, who gave their lives in World War II for the fact that the UK really still exists. And you can't just assume that will never happen again.
I suppose that's the shocking thing, right? Is you can get so close to a civilizational collapse, however it is that you want to term it, with regards to the various different angles we could be facing into that now, and yet have it almost disappear from collective memory to the point where we feel like there's not so much worth fighting for now, or we just take it for granted. I think is the other thing, is there's a complacency. I mean, there's also lots of people that I speak to across the divide, the political divide, who just think, well, things will turn out all right in the end. But there are so few people willing to play their part in things being all right in the end, on whatever level and whatever issue that they care about. It's just a kind of a blind faith, I suppose. And I guess that gets us, it ties in a little bit with that unscrupulous optimist points a bit. It's just this hope that the best case
everything will be fine.
Will turn out.
Oh, I actually gave a whole lecture in 2020 about this issue of complacency, because I believe the left in general right now is complacent. That is, they think that you can hack at a civilization as much as you want and everything will still be fine. Most of these people do not imagine that their politics endanger their iPhone updates. All that's going to carry on. And they're going to go to the supermarket and they're going to get their frozen dim sum or whatever. And everything's going to be completely available and they can get their vegan milk and whatever. They don't actually expect to make any sacrifices for whatever revolution they're rooting for. A lot of these people are white, and they think that if they bring in radical affirmative action policies, that of course they're going to be hired because they're good. No, if you're going to bring in radical overcompensatory racial quotas and you're white and that means you're out, then you're probably going to be one of the people who's out of a job or who doesn't get into university. There's no appreciation on the left that even their own personal day-to-day security, the way they go through their lives, there's no appreciation for the fact that the kind of policies they're advocating, the kind of disruption that they're coveting would destroy that life. They think they can be as disruptive as they want and bring in whatever policies they want, and everything will still be fine, and everything will tick over the way it always has been, supermarkets, iPhone updates, etc. And it was especially when I wrote The Mandibles, which came out in 2016, which is about the failure of the dollar in the United States and therefore what happens. I came to an appreciation for the horrifying fragility of order. And it's order that's a miracle, right? The natural state of nature is chaos. And that's true of our species also. It doesn't take much before basically you're running in packs and ripping each other's throats out. I mean, it's civilization is improbable, and we should be grateful for it. And it therefore requires protection and shepherding, and that also means not tearing it all apart because it's not perfect in your terms. It means being careful, and it means appreciating what you have inherited. And education is now so poor that we have raised generations that don't know anything and therefore don't appreciate how far we've come and how much better they've got it than their forebears. And they also don't appreciate the fragility of the future. And it's all of our responsibility who are alive at this time. There's nobody else to do it. Nobody. We belong to a particular set of people who is responsible for carrying the past into the future. Nobody else can do it.